Welcome to Dentology, the Business of Dentistry podcast. In this podcast, we delve into the non-clinical aspects of dentistry with inspirational guests from across the profession. You will hear incredible life stories, pick up valuable business tips and be entertained. I'm Andy Acton and I'm joined by my co-host, Chris Drevens. Imaan is a breath of fresh air, isn't she? Her energy.
She's fabulous. I'd say we've met her so many times. And it is strange, as those people who listen to the podcast, she's done a lot and she is so young. But somehow, because we've seen her a lot, you sort of forget that she's young, if that makes sense.
I think she's a great example of the power of networking and kind of networking with purpose. And that's not to say it's contrived, but just by being a great networker, it gets you great visibility and profile. But as she was saying when she was talking, it's led to a great job opportunity through her network. So it shows
an
the
interesting
power of it.
story, you know, even in someone who really has only been in dentistry, I suppose, when did she qualify? 20? So what's that?
Yeah, 3 years.
2015 or whatever. You know, her impact and what she's learned. I love the thing about the dual hospital NFD, which anyone listening is fascinating. Just brilliant, just really good.
And also that real kind of sense of family and, keeping things together and staying local. It's really important to her. It was a lovely chat.
Yeah, no, it's lovely.
It was a lovely chat. It's always a good day when it's a podcast day, isn't it?
It is brilliant. Love doing them. It's like chatting and we're pretending to be working.
It's the best job in the world, isn't it? It's kind of like just being nosy and picking in on people's lives.
And we're getting paid for it as well.
Yeah.
Even better.
Exactly.
What more could you ask for?
So today, ladies and gentlemen, we have an absolute stalwart, a star of the dental profession joining us. Lots of you will know her. If you've been to a dental event in the last few years, you'll definitely know her.
Yeah.
And today we're joined by Imaan Khalid. And Imaan's a dentist on the Young Membership Committee of the BACD, representative for Dental Tubules, and also General Secretary for the West Yorkshire BDA. So she's a busy lady. Welcome, Imaan. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me on, guys.
No, that's brilliant.
No, not at all. Thank you for joining us.
I'll tell you what, it is quite weird, isn't it? I've known you and spoken to you for a number of years, and it's only now I'm thinking, actually, you're quite young. Do you know what I mean? You seem to have been around for quite a long time.
Do I look
No. But do you know that thing? You sort of think, I've known you for ages. And obviously we've been doing this for flipping decades. And looking at that intro, it's like, Flip, you are sort of like an ever-present person. It's amazing.
I think a lot of it is testament to your good work, your networking skills, but also you've immersed yourself in dentistry in so many different ways.
And she's quite nice as well.
Yeah, and I think that's good for you. It's good for the profession. But we'll have a chat later about kind of how that starts to impact some younger dentists in terms of some of the groups that you're involved in. Yeah. But you are, like I say, a lot of people will know you.
Amazing.
If they've been to dental
hopefully for
events.
good reasons.
Exactly. But before we get to that, let's get back to the beginning, because you're very proud of your West Yorkshire roots from Huddersfield, from a large family, being the youngest of 6 children. So it must have been a busy household with lots of stuff going on. What was that household like? How's that shaped you to be the person you are today?
I think, do you know what? It's actually given me a lot of values, and it's given me a lot of like family values, but also it's really incorporated the morals that I have, and the respect I have for people has come from seeing that through my family. And I think for my culture as well, from that side of stuff as well, it's really helped. But I think back in the day, having a big family from the Asian Pakistani community, was quite a common thing. We weren't a very rich family. We lived in a 3-bedroom house, and there was 8 of us in that altogether. So it was very, very close-knit family. Obviously, you get on top of each other at times, but I've got 1 brother, I've got 4 sisters, so there's more of them are sisters. Like we fight loads, but we also have a lot of love for each other as well.
Wow.
But yeah, for definite, it's helped me have like a voice, because you have to be able to have a voice to be able to hear that.
Just to be heard.
Yeah, for definite. Yeah. So I'm the youngest out of 6, but yeah.
Any medics or dentists or anything in there?
Yeah, so we've got a bit of a mix. Everybody's kind of in like the medical kind of aspect of field. So my brother's the eldest, he's a doctor. And then I've got a sister who's head of blood transfusion for 2 private hospitals. And then I've got a sister who's a nurse. I've got a sister who's doing a PhD but also works part-time in a private hospital. And then I've got a sister who's does like business and finance for a private hospital. So she's not medically, but she's in the hospital field.
And what did your mum and dad? What was your mum and dad's sort of jobs and such?
So my dad was an engineer, and my mum's always been a housewife. So that was the dynamic that was in our house.
So prior to your mum and dad, if you go across the family into kind of aunts and uncles, are there medics or dentists in there? Because it just seems incredible that
six in a caring profession.
All like you and your siblings are connected in healthcare one way or the other.
Yeah. No, so none of I think we were like the first generation that went to university. So my dad did the apprenticeship route when he came here from Pakistan, and my mum's brothers and sisters, my dad's brothers and sisters didn't really go to university or anything like that. A lot of them are still back in Pakistan. So for us, it was probably, don't want to sound like big-headed, from out of my cousins, I'd probably say we are probably the most educated. But I think that comes with us being based in the UK as well, compared to being elsewhere.
And was there family pressure to get good education because that will give you better prospects in the future?
I think in general, the Asian community is quite very much like doctor, dentist, lawyer, kind of those kind of vocational where you get straight into it. But I think my family, it was a bit different in that respect. Is like my parents came here when they were very young. My mum came here when she was 13, 14. My dad was here when he was 8. So they've all of their life have been spent in the UK. So they were like, we want you to do whatever you want as long as you enjoy it, but have to be financially stable at the end of it. We don't want you to be dependent on us or anybody else. And I think that's really important. Whereas a lot of people, especially with females, are a bit more like, you go to university, get a job, you'll be married, and this, that. And my parents have been very much like pro-education first and everything like that first.
Right. Wow. So what was the trigger for you to do dentistry? Were your role models your older siblings, or was there another influence? Different. Yeah.
It was I think it was a mixture really. So with my brother being a doctor, he was like, don't do medicine. It's not worth the stress of it. So that was for me, was like a cross in the box for me. And then I always knew that I was always stronger at my sciences and my maths, and I was naturally quite talented at those without having to try as hard as I would do in other subjects such as English. I hate English. I used to just make up what I'd write basically. But for me then it was just exploring. So I did some work experience in optometry, in pharmacy and dentistry, and then dentistry was just the one that I felt like I could see myself doing more than out of all of the other ones. So for me that's what really pursued me. And then I had braces, which is obviously giving me a bit more of interest. And then I'd also had trauma to my teeth where I'd my sister whacked a seatbelt into my mouth. Do you know in the olden cars where you used to have a seatbelt? So she opened that and hit me in the face. So she chipped my tooth. I banged it in the bottom of the swimming pool before. So I've had a little bit of, it's all the work in my mouth has been from trauma, and it's all at the front. So apart from that, I think there was little things like that. And it was always very patient focused, and it was a lot of detail to what you were doing, and I found that really interesting. You're working in such a tiny environment, but you're doing such a intricate job, and I found that really something that I was really interested in.
Cool. And where did
that
you
trauma thing? Sorry, I was going to say that trauma thing. We've there's a few people, isn't it? That sort of has been their not inspiration, but has been part of their journey to becoming a dentist because they had their teeth repaired or saw someone else who had their teeth repaired. It's quite an interesting one.
I think it's a thing we've said before as well, that when somebody has, trauma in their mouth of some sort or other, as a dentist, being able to perhaps take the person out of pain, but then also restore their smile. I think sometimes it's easy as a dentist to forget that that's just your job. But the impact it has on that patient's life for the next 20, 30, 40 years is truly remarkable. Truly remarkable.
Yeah, for definite. Sometimes you don't see it, and then when the patient has a reaction in the chair, sometimes it's like, God, I caused that. I help. 9 times out of 10, it's a positive one. Just I caused that. That's and it's you just think it's your bread and butter, and you're doing it. You do what you do to get to that result. But then for that patient, it's I've been worried about this for so long, and you've just changed my life in a matter of hours, this, that, and the other. I've not been able to smile or whatever. And it's just God, I've done that. And it's something that I do day in, day out. But it just shows that, we can have, working in the mouth itself is such an intimate area to work in. Being that close to somebody as well and being in the mouth. There's only really 2 people. You have your partner or your dentist in your mouth, really. So that's the only two people that you see in there. So they have to have that trust and that confidence in you as well. So I think that's really important.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. And I think it's always sad. Quite often we see dentists at the end of their career. And sometimes they've lost that you know that star's kind of, it's not as bright as it perhaps once was in terms of the impact that they have on patients. So to hear you talking about it, you know, with such energy and excitement is lovely, and it'd be lovely if everyone could kind of retain that. Where did you go to dental school, Imaan?
Leeds, so I stayed at home.
Stayed local.
Yeah, but it was a bit of a tricky situation, to be fair, because I went to a college which is local to Huddersfield at the time. The year that I graduated, the year that I finished from that college, it was voted the UK's best college because of the grades and stuff. It was quite a big college, so it was over 2,000 students. And for the last 5 years for medicine and dentistry from my college, nobody had got into Leeds. And they was like, there's no point applying to Leeds because you're just wasting an application. And so we were always told that by our the people who would go to the careers advisor, this, that, and the other, and our tutors, and they were like, just don't do it, you're wasting an application. Nobody's been accepted for 5 years. And I had this conversation with my mum because I knew that I didn't want to. I'd struggle moving away from home, being so close to my family and being the baby. I think I was a little bit mollycoddled a little bit by everybody, a little bit. So
a little bit,
just a little bit.
And she admits it.
That's the main thing, me admitting it.
It is admitting it, yeah.
Yeah. And then so I said to my mum, and she was like, look, I really hope that you get somewhere close by. There's at the end of the day, apply if you really want to. And I did. And I got an interview, I went to it, and I actually thought that I wouldn't have got a place. And when I did get a place, I was quite shocked that I did get a place. And I had to go to the college and make sure they was like, oh, you applied and you got a place. And I was like, yeah. She was like, you're the first one in 5 years, well done. What did you do differently? And I honestly, hand on heart, can't say what I did differently to anybody else who may have applied previously.
Yeah.
What's really powerful. What's really powerful as well is it will now change the outlook of the people that work in the college to say to students in the future, definitely. We have had a student that's gone to Leeds, so do apply. Because the problem is these things for no reason could really impact people and how they go about things. Whereas you kind of, through the support of your family, kind of did it and it worked.
It's sort of ridiculous, isn't it? Well, no one's been there for 5 years, so don't worry about it. Don't even bother. And the reality of it is nobody really knows what those people could have been just terrible.
Yeah, exactly.
Very true. And there was a couple of people after me, and I was like, it was so nice to see that. Oh my God, you're from Greenhead. That's so good. And she was like, you were the first one after 5 years. And I was like, yeah, I was. I'm not special, but
no, that's really cool.
Yeah,
really cool. Yeah. So you qualified in 2020.
Yes, I did.
Which is obviously the COVID year. So how much did COVID impact your dental school experience? So
dental school wise, if I'm honest opinion, I don't think it affected us that much. I think we got because we were coming out of fifth year.
So weren't you?
So we had about 4 clinical weeks left, which in clinical sessions is about a week worth of dentistry. Not if you look at in this day, we take a week off to go on holiday. It's not a massive amount. It's not a massive amount. So for us, it was more not having the exams and then not having to present our cases was probably the biggest thing that we missed out on.
So what did you do? So what did you do about your exams?
So we had them online, and they were I don't know if they were open book actually. Were they open book? But they were some.
They were for you.
Yeah. I think they were timed. Sorry, they were timed. They were timed for 24 hours, so people could have used resources.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I wanted to be true to myself and not be the person that was reading through books, spent hours and hours on doing it, because you start second guessing yourself. It was quite a difficult time because I was looking after my father, who was quite unwell as well, and then trying to protect him from obviously COVID and stuff like that as well. So it was quite a difficult time. But also they made the exams very much scenario based. So it wasn't something that you could just go and pick up a book and find an answer in it, what they're looking for. It was very much a more advanced type of question where you'd have to really find your own true meaning to it. So it wasn't something that you could be like, oh yeah, the answer of this is in X, Y, and Z book. So I just sat there and I was like, that's be a true reflection of myself. Who are you going to be kidding if you're using resources? You're only going to be lying to yourself, really.
Right, that's a very long-term grown-up view to take, because lots of people, it's like, just got to get through the exam, whatever it takes, get through the exam. Whereas you're kind of saying, no, I need to use my knowledge and make sure that I prove to myself that I understand it.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's ingrained in me, is like, it's really important. If I have to be true to myself, otherwise there's always this constant guilt with me, and I don't like that, and that's why for me it's a really important aspect for me.
Yeah. So you obviously graduated. So was that an online graduation service? Did you actually get to graduate in a physical space?
Yeah, but it was a year and a half later. So it was actually more. It was April 2022 that we graduated. Wow. Yeah, so it kind of lost its sentiment, I think, a little bit. And they combined our graduation with the year below. So it was like I could have been sat next, because it was alphabetical order. I was sat next to either side of me, or sat next to a person who wasn't in my year. So it didn't really feel like even though I probably knew them in passing, it wasn't like it was just my year. It was like everybody was related together to go and do that graduation. So it was nice to see everybody again, because obviously
it's taken forever. Because reading out everybody's names from like
I think
2.5 years.
King's has got a lot more people than, for example, at Leeds we only got about 80 students, so it was about 160 if people came. So
right.
Can you imagine that though? Can't. It's just unbelievable. Get up, walk around, shake your hands. A long time.
So you are then obviously graduated, and then you then worked in general practice and also in hospital at the same time, which is quite unusual. So why did you why did you choose that, and how are those two experiences? What's the differences between them? Compare them.
So a lot of places offer where you do your FD year, which is your foundation year, and then you can do a dental core training year, which is in hospital. And you normally do that if you want to experience hospital life. Some people do it because they just want to experience it. Some people do it because they want to go into specialising, and then you need at least 2 years of that roughly before you can apply for specialty training. So for me, I wasn't sure what I wanted to definitely do, whether I wanted to go down a specialty route or not. But also doing it the way I did it rather than having it as 2 separate years. So when you do, like, you apply for foundation year or you apply for a DCT year, you can literally be anywhere in the country because you're ranked against everybody else who's applied in the country. So 1 year you could have ended up in Scotland. The other year you could have ended up in Northern Ireland or Plymouth or something like that. So you could have been anywhere in the country. The positive thing about was with the 2-year scheme, which is what I did, the longitudinal scheme, was that you meant that you were in the same area for 2 years. So we applied for this and we ranked it before COVID hit.
Right.
So I always said that, okay, I wanted to do something where I got a bit of mix in both, and it was more ideal that I meant that I didn't have to move away. I knew I'd be in the same place for 2 years. Because I feel like it's quite a big transition picking up and leaving after every year to go somewhere else.
Yeah, definitely.
This for me, it meant I was going to be in the same practice for 2 years, although it was only half a week, but it was better for continuity. And then also with the hospital side of stuff, that was split into 2 different subspecialties. So,
and was that Leeds as well?
Yes. So I did. It was at Leeds and Wakefield. My practice was in Wakefield, and the hospital was in Leeds. But they're normally quite close together, so that you can travel to both.
Yeah, otherwise it doesn't make sense, does it? If you're miles apart.
So one of them was the first year was Max Faxon Hospital, and the second year was restorative.
Oh wow!
So it was a nice, a big variety of places that I got to experience, which is not normally the case when you do a core training year. It's normally one specialty throughout the whole year. You're lucky if you get a mix.
That's interesting, isn't it, actually? Because you wonder why more people don't do it. Or is it because there's not that many slots? Because you get your FD experience, don't you? But then doing something like Max Fax is like, whoa.
Yeah, it is. It is. But Max Fax places, there's loads of those. Anybody could really get them out. It's the other specialties that you'd struggle with. So like a restorative or a peds ortho one. So this one, I got kind of the best of both worlds. I got the Max Fax experience, and I got restorative as well in my second year, so which made a nice mix for me, and it was definitely the one I wanted to do. The other ones were like fully Max Fax for 2 years, which I was very grateful I didn't have to do, because I kind of very quickly knew that that's not what I wanted to do. Not for me. I enjoyed the minor oral surgery side of stuff, but for me, like the actual like theatre time and stuff, and it's a very political environment to be in.
Oh, really?
So, it was, and there's an environment where seniors do have favourites, and you're not always treated the nicely when you're being at the bottom of the food chain in that respect of the work that you're doing and stuff like that as well. And so for me, it was just something that I felt that I couldn't, like, there was days where I'd come home crying because it was just that negative, like, or that negative experience that you had or whatever, or like I'd got upset during the day because of how somebody spoke to me or something like that, and I was just like, it's not the kind of environment I want. You have to have a really thick skin, I think, to do medicine. I was like, oh, medics get this all the time, so I'm glad I didn't do medicine. But yeah, for me, that was definitely it was a good opportunity for me, because it means I only had to do one interview as well, so I didn't have to go through the interview process again as well. And then by chance, obviously, COVID hit, and it meant I had job security for 2 years. Compared to other people who didn't have that, where they left FD, some practices were like closing and stuff like that. So the jobs were far and few between for new associates. And if you were the first to come in, you'd be the first to leave as well. And sorry, the last to come in, the first to leave.
Yeah, it's a great experience, isn't it? For 2 years, for those 2 years, you're sort of like almost overcome with experience but brilliant also in the fact of you quickly identified you didn't want to do max fax. I mean, I think it's great.
I suppose also you've got the thing of, one, it made you discount max fax, the minor surgery bit, but discount max fax quite quickly, but also gave you exposure to restorative, which is a big part of modern dentistry. But I also imagine as well, one of the things that many younger dentists talk about is the lack of true clinical experience they achieve whilst at dental school, just because there's lots of admin and risk mitigation that goes on. For you, I imagine that this process gave you lots of front-end patient experience and dental experience, so your clinical skills probably came on quite quickly as a result of going through that program.
So I think there's a mix, really, because the restorative side of stuff for me, I expected to be a bit more advanced, and it was very old school mechanical kind of dentistry, not the new believe in the bond kind of stuff. So I was trying to implement stuff that I'd learned out of dental school, out of DCT, that I was doing on courses or so, and they were like, no, just stick to the old materials that we're used to using, and like it's quite an old school kind of for the restorative dentistry. And
is that a combination of the style of the people who are doing the teaching as well as access to technology? Because part of me thinks that technology is not cheap, and in a learning environment, being able to afford new technology is expensive. Therefore, I can see why perhaps teaching older methods that are more manual in their approach might hang around longer than it's needed.
Not even just the digital, like, for example, it's not just the digital side of stuff, it's that materials that you used. If we're used to using like metal, porcelain fused to metal crowns, which have been around for years, they'll use those over like EMAX, which is more expensive. Like, why did you use that, this, that, and the other? And like certain equipment, I was like, can we get this? And I was like, why do you need that? Just use this instead. I was like, it doesn't give the kind of the same result. So I was a little bit stuck in that respect. But going back to the experience side of stuff, I think in general, dental school, the amount of experience you get has dropped throughout the years, and I think COVID didn't help, obviously, the years after me as well. Because I remember when I was in Max Fax one day, and I'd finished my clinic and I came to help out on the student side of stuff we had an emergency department where students see, and like fourth years had only been taken out like their third tooth. By the time that we were in fourth year, we'd probably taken out 70 teeth, like, by that time.
Wow, that's a massive difference in not very long.
But we had the hospital, so we'd be sent out to hospital to go and do a placement for a week. And then you get to do loads of extractions there, but obviously that was cancelled for them as well. So that's why we got a lot of my totals came from
I see,
but even in respect of like the amount of root canals that we had to do has far there's a massive difference between what it used to be compared to what it is now. Like, I think when I was there, it was like 5 canals. It didn't have to be even 5 teeth. It had to be 5 canals. So it could be a 1 molar and a couple of single teeth as well. Or it, like, compared to what it used to be back in the day, like people were doing like 30 and stuff like that and had to come out with like 30 root canals before they did. And that for me is like a massive, that the experience that you get in dental school does not prepare you for general practice. And I think it's a massive shock to the system, even though COVID slowed it down for us because
Yeah.
we had to practice on phantom heads when we got into our foundation year. It still slowed it down massively for us. And without COVID, it would have done as well, I think.
Do you think, Imaan, that you were saying that you would come home crying from something.
Yeah.
Do you feel that's helped you sort of toughen up a bit and you've sort of like become more robust and resilient from that unpleasant experiences that you had?
Yes and no. I think in some respects, yes, because it's like it's one person's opinion kind of thing, like how they speak, and that doesn't reflect everybody. But at the same time, I believe that manners cost nothing. And I feel like regardless of where you are in your career, it doesn't cost you anything to be nice to somebody who's slightly less senior than you are. Like I would never speak to my nurse in that way. Or I would never speak to my boss never speaks to me in that way. And I think it's just the environment that you're in. And I feel like there's no real excuse for that, apart from they've probably been treated like that and now they've taken on that role as that person where they're a bit more horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think people should come in with some change, to be fair. But whether it happens or not is a different matter. So, yeah.
And I suppose, as you say, I suppose it's the same as anything, really. If that's the way you've been taught or been brought up, then the likelihood is you're going to just repeat that, aren't you, on someone else who happens to be below you.
Which is bizarre, isn't it? Because we all know what being treated well and treating badly looks and feels like.
And how we'd like to be treated.
So why, if you've been treated badly, you wouldn't think, well, I didn't like it in that moment, therefore I would much prefer to have been treated like this. So I'm going to go out of my way to treat people like that, to kind of break that chain of behaviour. But unfortunately, I think historically, when you study human behaviour, people that have been treated a particular way tend to go on and treat other people like that way.
Exactly.
Repeating, isn't it?
I don't want to say everybody was like that. Everybody.
No. I'm just saying it's an interesting one, isn't it? Does it make you sort of like think, oh, okay. And also, I suppose the other way, it probably, as you said, it inspires you to be different.
Yeah.
So it inspires you to be like you were saying, manners cost nothing, that sort of thing. So that's what I'm going to predicate.
But yeah, I think what it is like now when I think back to it, it's like there was actually a lot of nice people, but you don't remember the nice. You always think the negative. I'm thinking back now. I got with some consultants really well. Like we had a good laugh and a joke and stuff like that. But the thing that sticks with me is like, oh, this is how I was treated. That feeling is never going to go. Like whenever I think of working in Max Facts, that negative feeling comes back first. Compared to how it far outweighed anything positive that was there for me.
Which is a real shame, isn't it? It's a real shame that real strong emotional feeling sticks.
Yeah. And I've never experienced that in any job that I've ever had or anything like that. So for that just sticks out for me, and it's a shame. It really is a shame.
Talking about positive environments, you're heavily involved with the BACD, and also Dentinal Tubules as well. And as an organisation through Frank Turner Associates, we support both of those organisations. We think they're great in the work they're doing. You're obviously actively involved, not just as somebody that attends the events, but kind of helping support them and organise them. What drew you to both of those organisations? Why were they an important part of your career?
So the BACD, I was introduced to it as a student, really, because they would do like a student rep thing where you'd be a rep for a year and get to a conference for free, your accommodations paid for. And I was like, oh, this sounds like an amazing opportunity.
Free. I love free.
Everyone loves free.
Everybody loves free. And I was like, yeah, accommodation, travel. I've got everything paid for this. Why would I not apply for it? But I've quickly come to realise that organisation, like how I was treated, it made me feel really welcomed. Even as a student, I felt really welcomed, and it felt like, oh, do you need any help, this, that, and the other? And I soon found that I had a lot of friends from it, and I networked, and it's really helped me, like people were seeing as a student, I was attending events and stuff like that, and it really helped me build not just my connections, but even as a student, I was offered to go on courses for either free or a discounted rate, and it meant I was getting the same knowledge as somebody who's graduated maybe 1 or 2 years after they graduated. I'm getting the same knowledge as a student. And I was like, this is so good. So when I actually did graduate and I went to a talk or something and they talk about using this method, I was like, I already know how to do that kind of thing. So it was really, for me, it was really good, and it has really helped me, not just people my age, but I feel like it's also introduced me to a wider community of the the dental world, like yourselves, you see it. So don't think I would have come across you guys as well. I think our connection with my Andy was through COVID, actually, the first time that happened. Yeah. But yeah, like with Dentinal Tubules as well, student rep again once with that. But that was because they had like local events to my area as well. So they used to do we used to have a study club, and I used to attend events with that. And it was just such a... But the thing with the Dentinal Tubules is different to BACD. They're both equally as good as each other in their own rights. The Dentinal Tubules covers a whole vast majority of different areas, from like root canals, endodontics, perio, gum health, and all the different specialties. It's not like just cosmetic dentistry like BACD is. So there's a completely different kind of audience that you get with the Dentinal Tubules that you get to the BACD, but they're both equally supportive, and they're both equally really fun people to be around, and they're all very supportive and encouraging of you. And I think that's what's really helped me is like whilst I was at uni, and then obviously my dad fell ill during that time, I lost a lot of friends because I wasn't able to spend as much time with my friends as I used to. And during that time, I lost a lot of my friends who didn't really understand the situation where I wasn't able to go for food after uni. My dad was my priority, like coming home to look after him, to look after him. And I felt very isolated I was from third year of dental school, and I really submersed myself into like the extracurricular stuff, and I didn't mention really what was going on in my family life, but everybody was so supportive and encouraging, regardless of what was going on in my life in these committees that I was involved with. That I actually found that a lot of my friends became people who were slightly older than me, or a good couple of years older than me, and they were really supportive. And they were like, people would say to me they would never understand what I was going on at home with me, because I'd always be so positive and always wanted to help. And I think that's really helped, because I've always wanted to help educate other people, and I've always been really supportive of wanting people to do really well, because it is difficult. And seeing where I've got to, from the help I've got to, I want to be that person to help the next person along as well. So I think that's really important for me.
No, I think that's a great thing. And it's interesting for me, I'm sort of, as you're talking, you think about those two organisations. And we've had Susie Rowlands on, who's obviously spearheaded the BACD from the beginning, and the work that she does. But her energy and her inclusiveness is kind of almost what you just described. And then at Tubules, you think of Drew Shah and his energy and his vision. And those organisations both having really strong leaders and creating an environment where it's comfortable for you and other dentists, be them young or old, to feel comfortable and grow. It's nice to hear that. Definitely. Obviously, we're not clinical at all, so we see it from a different viewpoint. But to hear you describe it in those tones is lovely. That's how it feels from a clinician.
Yeah, definitely.
Point of view. Would you say that, because obviously you got exposed to these organisations relatively early on in your career, are they more or less important than ever, these organisations, for younger dentists? Do you encourage young dentists to engage with organisations like the BACD and Tubules early on in their career? Yeah,
I think the earlier the better, really, because as soon as dental school's over with, like, everybody's in their own way. You might stay in contact. I probably stay in contact with like 5 maximum people from university. Not just so that I've fallen out with anybody or anything like that. It's just everybody's just so busy in their own lives. They're moving on with their life. They've got career aspirations. They've got family aspirations. Some people that I know like have had kids already, or people have got married. Everybody has a different career path, and it's very difficult to stay in contact with everybody that you were very close to in university. And I think it's very convenient to be friends with everybody in university, because that is your group of people that you're going to see for 5 years. Whereas when you're outside of that, you're kind of then isolated to your nurse and yourself in your room for a full day, whatever, how many days you work. And for me, it's finding those like-minded people. And if you enjoy it, if you enjoy going to different events and stuff like that, you'll find like-minded people. Like, most of my friends aren't based around where I live. Most of my friends are like London, Birmingham, this, that, and the other. So I don't see them all the time, but I know they're literally on the other side of the phone. If I need them, I chat to them regularly, and that's enough for me to know that I've got a supportive network who are very like-minded to I am, than somebody who I used to be uni with, who I've probably drifted apart from, and we just don't have the same, our visions don't align anymore, which doesn't mean that their vision's wrong or my vision
No.
different. It's just
Well, you're
different
back to
paths.
acquaintances and friends, aren't you?
Yeah. I also find it fascinating that you can feel close to somebody and know they're available, but geographically be at the other end of the country. You know you can pick up the phone. You know that they'll be available. You might not see them that often, but there's something that takes you kind of, you feel close to those people.
Yeah.
In terms of so you're working in a couple of mixed practices at the moment. So you've got some private work and some NHS work. Is the NHS work you do important to you?
It is, but it's also not an environment that I'd stay in for much longer, to be fair.
Tell us why.
NHS was great.
Yeah.
It's just not feasible to do, especially post-COVID. It's made it very difficult. You'll see patients who haven't been seen for 2 to 3 years. They'll come in with a handful of problems, and the job is to try and stabilize them first and then see them again for appointments.
Yeah.
But I've got a patient at the moment that I probably spent like 5 hours of work on, and at the end of that, what the patient will pay will be £70.70. And I'd get 5 UDAs at the rate that I'd be paying for that. So I don't get paid much for that, and I've still got some work left to do on them. They're nervous, they're anxious, they've got loads of fillings that need doing, they need so many teeth taken out, and it's just planning it to try and, like, you need to try and work a way that you can actually try and make some money, and it's really hard to actually make any money worth the time that you're spending on some of these patients, which doesn't affect the amount of care that I give my patients, but affects what I can do with my money at the end of that. Because I won't be paid. If I've spent 6-7 hours on a patient and I've been paid like less than what national minimum wage is at the end of that, then it's just doesn't.
And you're a highly skilled person as well.
Yeah, and for me, like, as much as the NHS is a very good thing to have in place, there needs to be a massive dramatic change in order for it to be still feasible for a patient to be able to attend, because people are not wanting to take on NHS contracts, or they're dropping their NHS contracts. And also to be able, because I'm more about, I had a one-to-one on Monday, and my boss said to me, we can definitely see you're more patient clinical driven than you are financially driven. And I'm glad I'm seen that way, because I'm there to give the patients care, and the money is because of the care that I give my patients. If I can't deliver that care to the level that I want to, I still feel like I'm not doing a good justice to my patient or to myself. And sometimes I'm like, if I could have just used that private stuff on that. It's very difficult to.
And I guess because you're seeing both sides of the fence,
so you've got a foot in both camps, haven't you?
You know what materials are available. You know the outcomes you can achieve.
I could do,
And that must be quite frustrating to know that in one environment you're limited by time and resources and materials, and in the other one it's open ended, but it has to be paid for, and that's not an easy kind of square to round off the edges.
And as you say, it doesn't sit well, really, does it? Because you're sort of almost underdoing what you could do, because you know you could actually do better. That makes sense.
And I also think it's one of those things, is like private dentistry, it doesn't have to be like, like the composite bonding. It's just doing good standard work with the right amount of time to then have a conversation with your patient. I find that with my private patients, I'm just spending my clinical work. Yes, it takes a certain number of time, but I end up having a conversation with a patient that I wouldn't be able to have in the chair with an NHS patient. It's like, sit down, open your mouth, let me get your job done, kind of thing.
We've not got long, let's get going.
And I think that's really, it's just, for me, it's just having the time to do the right work and not. So this is what the thing was. Somebody asked me this question, is what is the thing that makes it like what you want to do, like dentistry wise? And I was like, going to bed with a clear conscience, knowing I've done the best for my patients. And I feel like that's not always the case when I'm working on the NHS. And I feel it's a very difficult to balance the two side of things. But then again, I've just so for example, like you talk about networking, somebody from the so I'm obviously on BAPD as well, so the for the young membership for the British Association of Private Dentists. So this is where your networking comes in. So there's not a lot of practices that I know around where I am that do the kind of dentistry that I want to do into the private level that I want to do it up, and the skill set that I want to learn. and get mentored from. And then I was put in contact with somebody from via the BAPD, and now I've been offered a job in a fully private practice through that. So that's where your networks. It's not just what you know; it's also who you know. You've got to have obviously the clinical ability.
Yes.
To do that, but you also have to have, like, I'm happy to help anybody who comes my way. Like, I have patients whose children are like going into dentistry. It's like, just tell them to drop me a message if they want any help. I'm happy to help, this and the other.
This is great.
It's really important to be able to, if you've been helped by somebody, I think it's really important that you help the next person.
Yeah, pass it on.
It is literally the case of passing it on. And if you're not doing that, there's going to be a generation that's lagging behind, and that's not their fault. That's our fault, who have taken advantage of the help that we've got, but we're not giving it to anybody.
I've just got a very frivolous question, really. I wonder when you stop becoming the representative of the young. I wonder who tells you. Do you decide, or does someone go?
All right, Chris, I'm already old, so I shouldn't be on the young one.
Yeah, I mean, that's what a fascinating thing, isn't it? I wonder when someone goes, well, actually, I mean, what a conversation. Well, actually, Imaan, you're too old now to represent the young ones.
I'd hope it's presented in language of you've graduated, as opposed to you're now old.
You're now old, so get off.
I'd couch it in terms of graduation. Do you have an ambition to be a practice owner one day?
I think part of me is yes, and part of me is no. I feel like there's loads of stresses that come with it. But if I was to do it, it probably would be with a partner. I don't think it's something I could do solely. And I think that's because it gives you both a life.
It's hard work on your own, for sure.
And much good at delegating, which right now I don't think is my strongest point right now. I'm like,
you're still young.
Exactly. Yeah. The committee tells us that. Yeah. But I mean, what you say is right. I think, lots of dental practices are owned by solopreneurs. They're men or ladies who own it, run it on their own. I'm with you. I think having partners, Chris and I, we own a number of businesses, and we're kind of a common thread, but we have partners in our other businesses. There's no way I could do it on my own. I wouldn't want to do it on my own, and I'm not smart enough. So I think.
Do you remember when we first started? It was I moved over from where we used to work, and poor old Andy was. It takes about 35 minutes for me to drive home, something like that. So poor old Andy would get a phone call every night with me downloading the horror of the day, and there was only about 4 people in the team, and that included me. So without Andy, I'd have probably gone bonkers.
But it is hard. Owning and running a business is hard. So I think for you to be having the foresight now that says I might do it, but I'd have a partner, at least it kind of points you in the right direction. And it may happen, it may not happen. And at the moment, you're still very early on in your career. So
she's very young.
Exactly. you don't know what direction it's going to take you. Yeah. A sort of a sideswipe question. What thing makes you happiest in life? You strike me as somebody who is generally happy. Whenever we meet,
I'd say,
whenever we talk, you always smile. You've always got a great demeanour about you. But what's the one thing that makes you happiest?
I think making my family proud is definitely something that stands out for me. It's not been it's been quite a difficult couple of years for me, and to be able to make them proud has definitely been is one of my highlights, especially my mum. So it's definitely
cool. That's nice. Yeah. Very nice. I sense that from the conversations we've had, but every time you've mentioned about an opportunity, an opportunity to study, it needs to be local. I need to be near my family. Yeah. When you kind of graduated and you're going to do your foundation year and your DCT work, you've got to be local. Got to be local. My practices, they're local. So your family is a real anchor for you.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with Huddersfield.
No. Absolutely not. Absolutely
team's not so great.
No. Imaan, we always finish up in the same way. We have 2 questions for you. The first question we have for you is, if you could be a fly on a wall in a situation, where would that be and who'd be there?
So this is one of the questions that I struggle with, but I think in my head it would be the conversation that my mum and dad had when I graduated. So trying to get my mum to explain to my dad, because he was actually suffering from vascular dementia at the time, that I no longer need to go to college or university, that I've graduated. I think that would be a nice conversation to have heard, because I think for me, Asian parents, they're very good at being very critical to your face, and they always give you good compliments to other people about you, not to your face. So for me, that
Excellent.
conversation, it was like, whenever it was like, even if I was like parents' evening, it was like, oh, she's like the best student, and my mum would come and be like, yeah, try harder. That's what it would be. So it'd always be that. So it was always like, and having that conversation where my mum was be able to tell my dad that I graduated.
My hunch is, Imaan, they would have been incredibly proud of you.
Yeah,
incredibly proud of
I
you.
think they were a bit worried because I was a bit lazy whilst I was at college. Like, I'd be the last one out of bed. I was like, how's she going to do it? How's she going to get through college? Never mind, get to university. I'm a totally different person now. I wake up at 5 every morning now. But yeah, that's a different story. But yeah, for me, that'd be good.
Wow. That'd be good. And if you were given the opportunity to meet somebody, anybody you like, sit down with them and have a cup of coffee, who would you like to meet and sit down with?
I think this sounds very cliche, but it'd be my dad. So for those who don't know, I lost my dad in 2021, and the last 3 years of his life he was bedbound, and it was part of me and my sisters and my mum caring for him, and he was peg fed for the last 9 months of his life, and he had vascular dementia because he had suffered a couple of strokes. So he lost that ability to retain that information. So I feel like if I could have a conversation, it'd be before he fell ill.
Right.
And just make sure that he knew that I was super proud of everything that he's done for us, to be able to sacrifices that he's given, and my mum has given, to be able to have the life and the lifestyle we had, and the amount of the education, the opportunities that we've got, and the support that we got from him. It was really important for me.
Yeah. Oh, very sweet. Wow. Very sweet. Shows that family obviously is...
Yeah, family's key for you.
For you and your siblings and your mum, it's important, really important to you.
Yeah.
No, he'd be very proud.
Imagine the parties.
Yes, yeah.
And also, you're still so early on in your career. You know, you only qualified in 2020. You know, it's that thing. You've got so much more.
It does, doesn't it? What's that? Only 3 years, isn't it?
Yeah.
But also the speed of change of how dentistry is moving. You know, there's people who are coming towards the end of their career saying, oh, there's digital stuff. You're going to be kind of seeing the next 20, 30 years of changes coming down the line. It's an incredible time to be in dentistry.
30 years of their career, very little changed.
Yes.
And then it's like, whoa.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just going to be crazy how quickly things move now, I think. It's just one of those things that dentistry is always evolving, and it's just one of those things is like this. I don't know if you saw this article about trying to be able to grow teeth.
I was about to say, there's this thing about growing teeth, wasn't it?
That saves me a job, doesn't it? It takes me out of a job, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I was about to say the same article in the fact about their growing teeth.
I'll get a job with you guys if I've ever done.
That's right. It'll just all be cosmetic because they'll probably grow them. They won't look very nice.
No, there's lots of changes coming for sure. Sure. Imaan, it's been wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Like I say, I do marvel at the amount you've done already, and it is. Are
you going to say so young?
No. But it's just such early days. It's such early days. So I'm excited to see the years roll out as they do for you.
20 years time, I'll be retired. So that'll be fine. And you'll still be young.
Well, we'll wish you well. No doubt at all we're going to be seeing you in the event. I think we're both going to be at the BACD Congress later in the year. So lovely to see you there.
See you next
week. In the meantime, keep well and appreciate your time.
Yep, definitely. Thank you very much for having me.
No, thanks, Imaan. It's lovely. Brilliant.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Dentology, where we discuss the business of dentistry. If you like what you heard, please do subscribe where you found this episode. That would be amazing. And also follow us on Instagram.